Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and today I come not to you with news, but with a bit of rumor control regarding the future of the MonsterVerse. There seems to be a mindset floating around, and I don't know how prevalent it is, but it is noticeable, which suggests the MonsterVerse might not actually survive past Godzilla vs. Kong. Or at the very least, Godzilla won't be part of it, in which case the MonsterVerse might not last much longer anyway. Those who say this point towards three pieces of evidence. First of all, it is said that Legendary's license to Godzilla will expire in the year 2020, the same year Godzilla vs. Kong will be released. Don't ask me where they're getting that because I haven't seen anyone cite their sources yet, but it seems to be the prevailing idea. Second piece of evidence? The fact that we don't know what's going to happen after Godzilla vs. Kong, at least not at this point. There have been no announcements for other movies which will come afterward. And the third piece of evidence, Toho has stated they won't make another live-action Godzilla movie until after the year 2020. Again, the year Godzilla vs. Kong will be released, which appears to loop back and support the idea that the rights will expire. Now, what do I think of this? Honestly, I think it's a misinterpretation of the data. In fact, it's very easy to explain away all of this stuff. First of all, that thing about the rights expiring. Like I said, I don't know where people are getting that the license will expire in 2020, but let's assume for the moment that it is true. After all, the license is going to expire at some point anyway. Well, licenses can be renewed. And I think as long as the American Godzilla movies continue to make money, Toho will be more than happy to renew and extend the license for as long as they possibly can. After all, Toho is producing these movies too. They're getting some of that box office. What about the second part? The fact that we don't know what's happening after Godzilla vs. Kong. I admit that is kind of eyebrow-raising. After all, we live in an age where cinematic universes have sequels planned out years in advance. But again, this isn't necessarily a bad sign. I want you to think back to 2010, around the time Iron Man 2 was released. That was Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Did we know at that point what would happen in Phase 2 and beyond? Did we know we'd be getting films with such obscure characters as Ant-Man or the Guardians of the Galaxy? Did we know there would be 4 wildly successful Netflix series? Did we know Marvel and Sony would work out a deal involving Spider-Man? Of course we didn't. At that point, all we knew was that the Avengers was going to happen, and some people weren't even sure that movie was going to work. Yeah, there were quite a few people saying this movie was guaranteed to fail and the Marvel Cinematic Universe would die with it. We all know how that turned out. My point is, it wasn't until after that first crossover was successful that we started getting the advanced schedules we're used to now. Seems to me like the MonsterVerse is taking a similar approach. I bet we start hearing little tidbits about the MonsterVerse's future the closer we get to the release of Godzilla King of the Monsters. But what about that third piece of evidence? That Toho won't be making another live-action Godzilla movie until after 2020. Surely that must mean there won't be any more American Godzilla movies, right? Well, no, it doesn't mean that. First of all, it should be obvious that doesn't automatically equate to the rights expiring because the rights didn't have to expire for Toho to produce Shin Godzilla or the Godzilla Monster Planet movies. There's nothing in the agreement which says Toho can't produce their own films, so the rights don't have to expire. But more to the point, I think it's actually pretty clear what's going on. You just have to recognize a particular pattern. Consider this. In 2014, we got an American Godzilla movie. In 2016, 17, and 18, we get Japanese Godzilla movies. In 2019 and 2020, we get American Godzilla movies again. And then, allegedly, after 2020, another Japanese Godzilla movie. To me, it's obvious. Japan and America are alternating. Remember, Toho gets automatic distribution rights to the American Godzilla films in Japan, because Godzilla is their character. So, consider this hypothetical scenario. Let's assume, just for the moment, that the producers at Toho decide they are going to make a new live-action Godzilla movie. They will make Shin Godzilla 2, and they're going to release it around the same time as Godzilla vs. Kong. Now let's suppose that Godzilla vs. Kong winds up succeeding, but Shin Godzilla 2 bombs. And yes, that could easily happen. Japanese audiences have wanted to see a rematch for just as long as American audiences have. Besides, we're speaking hypothetically anyway, so just play along. Godzilla vs. Kong has succeeded, Shin Godzilla 2 has flopped. That's not good for Toho. True, they still are producing Godzilla vs. Kong, and they're going to get some of the box office, but a good chunk of that box office is also going back to the American studios who produced this film. Toho would have gotten all of the box office from Shin Godzilla 2, but in this scenario the movie tanked, which means it actually lost money. That's bad even if you don't take into account that the Japanese economy sucks. Or suppose the opposite happened. Shin Godzilla 2 was a success and Godzilla vs. Kong tanked. That means Legendary and Warner Brothers lose box office. And they probably won't take too kindly to the idea that Toho just generated its own competition. That creates bad blood between the studios, and things just get worse from there. Now, true, either one of these is a worst-case scenario. But worst-case scenarios exist so you can prepare and avoid them. And I think that's what Toho has in mind. They're not going to create a scenario which will either lose their chance at international box office or lose domestic box office. By having an alternation between American Godzilla movies and Japanese monster movies, not only is the Godzilla brand name kept alive, but Toho has increased its chances at maximum box office. I'm fairly confident the MonsterVerse is going to continue. We may not get another Godzilla or Kong movie right away, but maybe we'll get something else. Only time will tell. Those are my thoughts, at least. Feel free to leave yours in the comments section below. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer, signing off.